Are you looking for insight into what your middle school children are going through? I definitely would have benefited from this conversation just to be able to foresee some of the things that my children were going through. Are you looking for help in teaching your children while they're going through these changes? They're going through a lot of changes during these middle school ages. Physical changes, social changes, emotional, cognitive changes. There's a lot going on. And sometimes it's hard for us to continue teaching during this time or continue teaching the same way that we had been teaching these children up to this point. Do you wonder how to keep your calm during these potentially turbulent years? Again, something I definitely would have benefited from. You're going to enjoy today's conversation. I'm going to be talking with my guest about navigating the bumps through the middle school years, because it's not always easy. These years can sometimes seem like a roller coaster of emotions for our children. They're going through sometimes awkward physical changes, oftentimes pretty tumultuous emotional changes, and exciting, but also sometimes really difficult social changes. And we as homeschool parents, we just want to remain calm and not hop on the roller coaster with them. But it's not always easy. I'm Diana Rolston, and I want to welcome you to Spark Homeschool Parent. Each week, I provide strategies to ignite that spark that engages your child's learning. And it's hard for me to believe, but this is the 5th month that I've been doing these Facebook Lives. The first month, we hit the S. We talked about strengths, and then purpose. The A is attitude, and just how learning should be fun. Last month in January, I was talking about with some of my guests reflection, just looking back at the year or the months, even the week or the day that you've had, evaluating it, making changes for the future. And now in February, we're hitting the K. We're talking about keep on going and keep the faith. Sometimes it's not always easy. There's a lot of things that get us down, the doubts and the fears. So those are the things that we're talking about. Last week, I had the opportunity to talk with Robin Gilman. We were talking about stress-free homeschooling. So if you didn't get a chance to watch that interview, all the interviews are stored at Spark Educational Therapy. That's my company, and that's on Facebook. And just check out the videos. They're all stored in there. I'm also really excited because I'm going to be doing a webinar tomorrow. I'm just going to pop up on the screen here how you can register. That webinar is how to educate joyful children with a spark for learning. That's going to start at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, tomorrow, Saturday, February the 12th. So, and you can see on the screen there how to register for that at sparkeducationaltherapy.com/homeschool. And the registration form is there. That is going to be on the Zoom platform. So register and you'll get emailed that Zoom link. So I hope to see you there. That's going to be fun. I'm actually really excited for that. This conversation today is for you if you're educating your children during the middle school ages, or maybe you're just not quite there, but you're looking forward to these years, and you would just appreciate some insight into what they're going through or what they will be going through. You're going to enjoy today's conversation if you're hoping to keep your calm while your children just seem to be a little unreasonable at times. And you're going to enjoy today's conversation if you're looking for help in teaching your children while they're going through these changes. Again, this is Spark Homeschool Parent, and I want to thank you for joining me. I see that we have a few people watching live, so that's awesome. If you could just send in a comment. Oh, I see Virginia there. So excited to see you too, Virginia. Oh, and Virginia's going to be joining me on the webinar tomorrow, so that's awesome. As you're joining in, just send a quick note. I always appreciate seeing who's out there, and send in questions if anything comes up during our conversation. I'm Diana Rolston, and today's conversation is navigating the bumps through the homeschool years. It's not always easy. Hey, Julie, nice to see you. And I have the privilege of speaking today with a woman who is married to a wonderful man, Andrew, and together they have 10 children. They have 5 daughters, 5 sons, ranging in age. I know their eldest, 24, is planning a wedding, and their youngest is 6. So quite a few different stages in there. And she's been homeschooling for the past 11 years. My guest has 7 children, had 7 children in the public school system before they took them out to begin homeschooling. And currently, she and her husband are homeschooling 5 of their children. 2 of them are graduated from Algonquin. One is a self-published author and working, and the other 2 are working, saving for post-secondary school. So lots of different things going on there. Let me just bring her on here. Sorry for the delay. There we go. Hey, Lisa, thanks very much for joining me. This is Lisa Moore Ede. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before we get started, I wanted just to share a quick story about my experience during these middle school years. And I think it's important to also say that the years that we're talking about aren't like they hit a certain age and things go awry. Every child is different. I actually talked with some friends who just didn't have experiences or their children didn't go through a lot of changes like this. Sorry, I just want to say, Lisa, I got a comment. I'm not sure who it is from a Facebook user who says you're awesome, says you're amazing, and she's happy to be listening in on this conversation. But it was around this age when my children, after they kind of hit the middle of the elementary, before they got to high school, where we just became a little stagnant. I was kind of like feeling a little bored, losing my spark to educate them. But at the same time, they were finding their voice. And I was hearing their need for independence, but not necessarily ready for that. So that's why I'm really excited to be sharing this conversation, because I definitely would have benefited from this. Maybe we can start by you sharing several stages our children go through to help us better understand what time frame we're looking at, what we're talking about when we say the middle school ages.
Yeah. So what I've sort of come up with my 10 kids, and just sort of as I look back, and it's other people asking me, and I'm like, oh, so I sort of put this together with no ages, but infant, you're sort of taking care of them completely. And then you get to the toddler stage, which is a fun stage, I think, where they're beginning to explore the world, but they're also beginning to push boundaries. And then you get to sort of the kids stage where they're starting school. They're learning more from the parents and sort of exhibiting. And then you also need to adjust the boundaries again because they're just a little bit older. Then you sort of hit the preteen age where they are looking for more independence, but not completely. And I encourage them at that point to start making more decisions. So I'll start, it involves more talking. But you're sort of laying out some of the scenarios and just trying to get them to input, opposed to just telling them what to do or what not to do. And then we hit the teen stage, which I don't make as many decisions at that point. My children in particular don't like this. All of them have commented where I will lay out the scenario. I'll tell them, I'm like, but you need to make the decision. And they're like, can't you just make the decision? I'm like, no, I need you to make the decision. I need you. Because then your final stage is hopefully a self-sufficient, mature adult. And that's, I believe, our goal is to be able to launch them out so that they can try to navigate this world that we live in.
Awesome. Thanks for pointing that out. So just so our listeners know, it's that preteen kind of transition between the kid and the more independent teenager that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that you mentioned like our response, because a lot of times we're stuck as parents in that parenting toddlers and kids, and we forget that it's a process.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of changes that go on. There's physical, like I mentioned before, social changes, cognitive, emotional. So let's take a look at some of those.
Okay.
We'll start with the emotional changes. I have, I'm just going to put up onto the screen a slide here. This is from a presentation that I did on the middle school ages. This is, I think that's a good example of these emotional changes. We can have, our children can just go from extremes, eh?
Yes.
But let's talk about that. How do you suggest that we as homeschool parents react to our children's increased desire for independence?
I think first of all, you need to understand that they're going to change. And that caught me off guard. When all of my kids hit puberty, not all of them, but the majority of them, their personality really changed. And I remember the older ones. I'm like, what on earth is going on? And it sort of clued in. But I think what amazed me is some of them didn't go back to what they were like before. And then their uncertainty. I don't know if it's just with puberty hitting and the ups and downs, they're starting to be more aware of what's around them, and they can, not all of them, can become more uncertain of themselves. And so I've had a couple who were just fun loving and would just sort of go to anybody and talk, and then all of a sudden they weren't, and I'm like, what's the matter? Why aren't you? But they are all of a sudden like, but I'm scared. I don't know what to think. And it's taking a step back, not pushing them, and acknowledging that that's a reality for them. And I think once you acknowledge it's a reality, just like when a little kid hurts themselves, if you acknowledge that they've been hurt, all of a sudden they're actually a lot better if it's not something severe than if you just try to cover it up. I've found that with mine. So they stub their toe, and then it seems to be like they're like, oh, okay, mom knows, and then they can move on. Acknowledging it is, and for us, it's been 2 or 3 years or more sometimes where they're just sort of trying to navigate this ups and downs, and they can't concentrate the same way sometimes. They'll need to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've had, I mentioned you have 5 girls and 5 boys. Have you seen a difference between girls through this stage and your boys through this stage?
With my girls, I have been teaching them to track their periods, because for us and our family, I know some don't get affected at all, but for all of us, there definitely is a dip in our emotions and in our patience. And it was actually my husband who started it. And it wasn't a conversation we had. It was just something he started when they were 9 or 10, and just they would get upset. They would lose their temper. And then my husband would just gently come along and say, you need to learn to control these now, because once you get a little bit older, it's going to get worse. So start to learn how to figure out how to control it now and talk about it and such. So now that I've told the girls what's about to happen and what's going on, we now are just very open to say, you know what, this really isn't a good time. And they can tell their brothers too, to just say, I'm not doing very well right now, or, and the boys even know to be like, okay, and they respect that. So
that's an important conversation to have. Me having only boys, I forget that. But also good for your boys to.
Yeah, because it's a reality in life.
Yeah, for sure. When you were doing a presentation for Rideau Valley Home Educators Association, you had spoken about this middle school age, and you had a few cartoons in your talk. So I'm going to just pop one up. Some of our listeners will be familiar with zits. There we go. Oh, I don't have my glasses on. It's so small. But so this point that you made about doubt and confusion. Yeah, this boy here.
Or just not being able to remember what, like, it's happened so many times. They start talking and they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, all right, when you let me know.
Yeah. And yeah, I love at the start I was saying if you want to like be prepared for these stages, because they really can be quite funny if you can stand back.
If you can stand back and not get frustrated, or you're looking at them and you're like, what's wrong? And they're like, I don't know. And
yeah.
I think at times they really don't. They
Yeah.
just.
Here's another one. And I still find this with my boys are 23 and my twins are 22, and like still.
Yeah, I still find it too with my older ones. And my husband's comment when I complain about the house is like, oh, you let the kids into the house. It's just a reality. I'll be very interested to see as they all move out how they manage their own homes. But I've realized that this is my home, and I need to be patient, but I also need to let them know what some of the rules are, and then understand what they're going through. There's times where they really, really do forget, like when they were toddlers, or just, you would tell them maybe 2 or 3 things and they only remember the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And so some kids can follow through and other kids can't. For mine, I've had to reduce courses so that they're not doing as many because it was confusing them. So I had to, for example, I have one English course that the book has grammar and writing in it. I took out all the writing and I just had them do the grammar and finish that. And then I concentrate on writing later. Because some curriculums will try to put everything together. It doesn't work with my lot. I have to concentrate on one thing at a time.
That's a great observation and a good tip and it's not like you're going to
forget about it.
Never do writing. You're just going to do it all together as writing.
Yeah, so that they can just they're not getting confused, or they can kind of put their all into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's great. The next change that we were going to talk about is the physical change. I'm going to pop up a picture here. This is kind of an awkward physical. There's I have a tall family, so this is a time when my boys, some families say that their child grew like a foot in a matter of months or weeks, and that certainly happened in our family. So that's why I like this picture. Also, they have a really great appetite. So I like that cartoon. And then there's also a need for a lot of sleep. So very natural. Of my 3 boys, 2 of them could have slept until noon every day. But one of mine, he continues to wake up early and go to bed early. But that reminds me too, when we're homeschooling, we have the flexibility. If our children need a lot of sleep, and a lot of them may stay up late and sleep in late, but we can adjust that schedule, can't we?
We can adjust it, but it's hard because you're trying to probably just keep a schedule, because we're not only teaching, right? We're trying to manage our house. We have our meals to make and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And so when my kids were younger, there's one time I bribed them with chocolate. You'll get your piece of chocolate if you're at the table at whatever time I had set. That doesn't work anymore.
No. That reminds me too of just the hormones and the acne. And we often related that to chocolate. But also, they need more sleep. They eat more. So sometimes they may have some weight issues at this stage, but not weight that's going to stay for a long time.
No, because they'll grow, because we've had it with several of ours. A lot of ours hit puberty late. And so they would be a little bit chubbier, and then all of a sudden we just see them stretch out, and it's like it's something else to watch and to see. So we've been very my husband, if any of you know my husband, I'm 5 foot. My husband is 6'2", red hair, red beard, and just complete different stature than I am. So our kids vary within that. So as far as weight gain and talking about weight, I have suppressed that greatly. And I'm like, just eat healthy, do your best, but nobody's allowed to tease one another, because again, we just have the diversity in our house, and I wanted peace with that one. But yeah, they're growing. Even when mine were in school, every once in a while I would notice that they were all tired, and I would either let them take them in partway through the day, or I would let them have the day off. It didn't happen often, but every once in a while you could just see they're just wearing down. And so you need to just give them that chance for their bodies to get a bit more sleep.
The other big change that our children are going through are social changes. This is the picture that I put up when I did my presentation on middle school. So they're moving away generally, and this is a good thing. We have to remember that these changes are good, and this is what brings them to become independent adults. But around this time, they're moving away from dependence on their parents, on us, and looking to explore more social relationships. What are some of your suggestions here?
To continue that open conversation and talking with them, asking them questions, and acknowledging that some of the friends that they had when they were in sort of the elementary stage might change enough that they don't connect anymore. And we've had that happen 2 or 3 times with some of our kids. It's just, they're starting to develop more of who they are and stand more firm on that. And so just, again, to talk with them and keep open and allow them to sort of try to make their own opinions too.
Yeah, because as they explore a little bit more, they start to see different lifestyles, and maybe up to this point, a lot of our homeschool children haven't been invited to be part of other families, so they're beginning to see this. So fantastic to keep that conversation going, and for our children to remember what they've learned up to now from us and our ideals. Now, I'm really interested in your input on this, on how we as parents, homeschool parents, don't hop on this roller coaster with our kids. What's some of your insight here?
Okay, so this one was a challenge when we pulled our kids out of school. And my eldest knows this because she tells it too. She was 13 at the time, 12, 13, and her and I hit heads majorly. And we both are planners, and we both kind of take charge. And so both of us were trying to do it. It wasn't working too well. And we would get into arguments. And there was one time where I was cooking dinner. We were in one argument of some sorts. And then I saw 2 of my quieter kids beside, and I can just see their insides just crumpling. And I'm like, okay, God, I need something different. I can't keep this up with my daughter. I can't keep, going up and down with her. And that's when God gave me the verse, a quiet answer turns away wrath. And so at that point, literally, there were times when things could get heightened. I would have to sit down to get myself to calm down, and then almost whisper to her, and then that would bring her down, and then we could actually talk. Because the moment a voice gets raised, conversation is not the same. So that was one of the biggest roller coasters that I think I was riding, and I had to realize I have to keep my calm. I found through homeschooling, I think I've learned more about myself and my expectations and what I want, and then we have all these wonderful children that they have expectations and wants, and it's trying to figure out how to balance what they're going through. and then just being quiet and listening. I had another one who was going through a lot of difficulties, and at one point just telling me, "You're not listening to me. You never listen to me." And it was hard. I had to take a step back and be like, okay, maybe I'm talking too much. And so after that, I just listened, and I just prayed that God will show me, okay, what can I say? But sometimes they just need to be listened to. Yeah, I don't know if there's, or like if they're doubting something and they normally don't doubt it, it's again listening to what are they doubting now, and these are part of the changes, right? Because you're like looking at your child and you're like, that's not what you used to be like what's going on? And it's just, I think the biggest one for us was to stay calm.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as you made reference to before, that this is really a transition for us as parents, and that's why it's great to know that it's coming up. We know that when our children are adults, we stand back, but there is that transition period. It's hard for us.
It's hard. Like I had one son who I have a couple of them that they're like, why am I doing this? And I'd be like science was one of them. Like, why am I doing this? I don't want to go into science. I don't. And one of them would, they would do what I want them to do. And they were doing one course, and their whole demeanor was just, it was so sad. And I remember calling up my husband at work one day. I'm like, do they really have to do this course? And we took it away. Because I also saw they were involved in cadets and stuff. And so they were doing other things that was developing different skills and stuff like that. And in the end, once they were looking at going to Algonquin, they all of a sudden finished the courses I wanted them to do. And I didn't even ask, because they were technically graduated at that point. So it's, again, wisdom. It wasn't worth it for us and our relationship with them to have them keep going in that particular course or a couple of courses. Our relationship was more important than forcing them to do what we wanted them to do. It's a balance, but I had to do that with a couple of kids.
I would love to have you join me another time, because that's an area that we really, I think, need to explore a little bit more. And I'm thinking that like SPARK is an acronym, and I think that really would help in that purpose and attitude areas, the P and the A. Yeah. So if it's okay with you, have you join me again, that would be awesome. So I want listeners to just the big takeaway that every child is unique. Some of our children hit this middle school age when they're 9, 10, 11. Some of them don't hit this sort of transition stage so dramatically, and some it's a little bit later. And these changes, they're different for all of our children. And the homeschool journey continues to change. And another thing that you mentioned when we were talking offline to help with that remaining calm is just to remember, put things into perspective. So, and remember like the big picture of the why we're homeschooling, and that relationship is so important. Because really, if we get on that roller coaster, our voices could be louder than the next. And
well, it was in one of your talks, Diana, that you mentioned to have the vision of why you homeschool. And I remember after that talk, I more purposefully wrote it down. One of them was to bring back the love of learning. One of them was faith, but it was that love of learning. And I remember that when I'm doing, like, so for math, I've pretty much kept the same curriculum. I have one child who's doing something different, but I've had to just teach it in different ways to different kids. Or you pull back something because it's just not working.
Yeah.
But to remember why you're homeschooling, because you can get off track so easily.
Yeah. And for myself, and I think for you too. It's around this middle school age where it is easy to get off track.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining me, Lisa.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And yeah, I look forward to having you on again.
Sounds good.
This has been Spark Homeschool Parent. My commitment is to provide a community where we can share our questions, our doubts, as well as equip you with the skills and the mindset to navigate through this ever-changing homeschool journey. The first step to being connected is to be part of this Spark Homeschool Parent Facebook group. So many of you listening are part of that already. If you are not, just become a member there. That would be awesome. You can be part of our conversation, our ongoing conversation. The second thing, I'm going to put my banner back on of how to register for this webinar tomorrow. So you can go and register at sparkeducationaltherapy.com/homeschool and register on there. It's on the Zoom platform. So when you, the Zoom link will be sent to you. And that's at 9 o'clock Saturday, February 12th. That's 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I'll be back again next Friday, 1 o'clock. And I'm going to be talking about homeschooling our children through the high school years. Lisa, you mentioned that you love those elementary years. High school is the time that I really enjoyed. So all of us are different, but come back next week at 1 o'clock and you can hear that about the high school, homeschooling high school. Thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.